Good evening. My name is Michelle and my partner name is Isela. And thank you for taking the time to meet with us today.
Thank you for inviting me.
The interview will last approximately 15 minutes.
Okay.
Okay, thanks. We did you choose? Why did you choose a career in translation?
Okay. At the beginning, I was looking for something that I like, that related things that I want to do in the futures in my work. So, I have this friend that told me like, there is this career in the University of Antioch in translation, and they do this, and this. So I like it because I like read, I like languages, I like cultural topics. So I thought at that time that was a good idea, and right now I think the same, and that's why I choose this career. I look for something that I like and related to the things that I like to do usually.
Okay, interesting. And how do you how do difficult or culturally specific words and expressions in translations?
Okay, in this case, there is a lot of theory, a lot of methodology, and a lot of professionals that I gonna told you like this is how you're gonna do it. This is wrong. This is right. But you mainly you have to choose what is. This is your decision, the decision of a translator, how to do that. So we do like a lot of investigation of the context of the source language, of the source text, and usually if you have this opportunity to have the contact of the author, you can ask them like, what do you want to say here? Why you say that? What do you say? Why you express this like this and things like that, because that make the text more accuracy and the main idea or the original idea of the author. So that's how we work. We use a lot of theory and methodologies like domestication. We take this word and the target language like can be like Spanish, and we try to make it like equivalent, but in our context, on our cultural context. So we have a lot like neologisms and things like that. There is a lot of methodologies, but it's your decision like as a translator to take that and use the right one for you and the other, by the way. So I think these cultural terms are a little bit controversial for us because we try to be like the most how explaining, like you want to be like a shadow. You want the author express the same idea as the third language in the third language, but you need to interfere and make it like more understandable for the readers in the third language.
Fascinating. Thank you for answer. Okay. Um, what has been the most challenging aspect for your study?
Okay, then could be, I don't know. When start this career, I just thought like, this is translation. I'm gonna learn languages and I'm gonna read things and translations and things like that. I just think that will be that's it. I thought, but there is a lot of theory, a lot of norms, a lot of methodology, a lot of history that you need to be um, uh, cons- like consciousness of that. You need to be like aware of that. So I think that was the most difficult part, because when you have like a text, like a legal text, you need to be like so consistency. We have phrases specific in Spanish and in English to express these ideas, and you have a legal context different in, for example, USA and Colombia. So mixed translation can be so difficult, and there is phrases established in Colombia and in English, and you need to use it because you can get it wrong. You can make a mistake in a legal document. So that was like the most difficult, and the formats for like letters and emails and uh, manuals of machines and things like that. You need to understand how that works before translation. Translation is like the funny part of all the process, because, and I think you get like, you spend more time in all this investigation and things like that, terms and a lot of uh, how the format and how the context of what we need in this text, that the translation. So the translation is the funny part of all the process.
That makes sense. What strategies do you use to ensure accuracy and consistency in your translations?
What is tragedies? I think as a translators, we rely on CAD tools like software for translators. And like I said before, in legal documents, I'm gonna use it, for example, in this case, like for explaining how CAD tools work. So we have a CAD tool. There is a lot, MemaQ, Trados, Omega T, things like that. We have a lot of programs, and but they work like in this way. So we have the source language, the target language, and we have like for segments, they are separate, the two of them for segments, and we translate it like that. We leave the segment and then the paragraph for the context to the structure and things like that. And we have term database, the terminology database, and memory of translation. The terminology database is when you have like a term and you have a equivalent, because this is a controversial word, because there is no equivalence in languages, because we are so different. So we have equivalence, and this is, we use it like when we are translating. We have like the machine like make a notification like, oh, you have this is equivalent for this word. So you can use the same term in, for example, in Spanish for this translation of these words, the source language of English in English, and we can use it in all the text and make it like ensure the consistency. So we have like the memory of translation that is more like phrases. I don't know. This is no AI. This is not something like that. This get like phrases and tell us like, oh, you have 50% of consistency, accuracy to this phrase that you used before. So we read it and we make sure that that is really like that, because the machine really gets wrong a little bit. So we use that to maintain like the consistency and accuracy. And obviously the glossaries is the most important thing ever, because companies has their own terms and their own terminology, like hydroelectrics, things like that. I don't know, but every field has his own terminology. So that's why we need to have like this glossary before, and we in the program make like our database, terminology database for us to work in that text and don't get it wrong and make mistakes with that. Because usually the people who read who reads that type of text has be, previous knowledge about it. So you need to use the correct terms to not sound like you are speaking to anyone or the general public. So that's why we need to use a lot of these tools. Okay, I think and our program is like translation English, Spanish, and French. And I think English we have a lot of, I don't know, we all know a little bit of English. In our context in Colombia, there is a lot of things that is in English. We are in contact a lot, so I don't think it's fascinating or interesting, but I like it. But in France, when I start this career, I don't have any idea of French. I don't really know anything. I wasn't aware of the cultural meanings or the pronunciation of the words. I just thought like, oh, it's similar to Spanish. Maybe it is easy to learn something like that, but it's quite the opposite. So was like the most difficult. I think is interesting because you need to be a really good in list. You need to be really good in listening because that is all the code you are gonna understand in French. You have text and they write different at how they pronounce it, and it's you think English is difficult to pronounce it, but French is like multiply that for 10. So you need to be like good at it, and you can sound good, but that could be completely wrong. I like a lot like the pronunciation, how this sounds, and the poetry because they our teachers may make a lot of work with analysis and about poetry and literature, and I think that's the thing that I like the most. And I like too the music, the culture, all about France. I found it really interesting. Yeah, I think that's it. I really like French. I think I'm just learning about a little bit. I just not so good, but I really trying, and you can really see a relation in Spanish and French. So make it more like home, but it's different. In English, it's more like consistency, and the phrases are so reduced. In French and Spanish you can find like more words to express something, and that's what I like too of French. Okay, there is two topics that I think that comes to my mind right now, and will be like when you are studying translation, the people always say like, but you just don't use Google Translator or DeepL or something like that. It's like all the things that I said before in this interview, I that is implies a lot of things, a lot of theory, a lot of practice, a lot of knowledge more than the language. So that's why I think this is the most common misunderstanding that you can ask to any translator and they are gonna say the same as me. And the second one will be like interpreters and translators because the people think like, oh, translator, they can interpret, pues make an interpretation of this, and this is not how this works. the abilities that we need is so different. For example, I have more experience in translating text and listening and reading and things like that, and and no speaking. I don't have a lot of experience speaking in English and with any native speaker or something like that. So I don't have this experience to make a like interpretation, a simultaneous interpretation of someone else and make it like happen in seconds to translate that idea to the other person. I don't have the abilities. I don't have the training for that. So and the same thing happened for the interpreters. They don't have the training for a translator like a text and something like that. That's why I think that's I the most two common things that the people gets a lot of confusion and makes the life a little bit difficult for translator, because when you have a client they just ask something like, oh, can you do this interpretation? It's like, no, because I don't have the training for do that. I don't can ensure the quality of this interpretation. I don't can give you that. I can make a translation of a text. I can make a lot of things of that, but I can make you an interpretation. I think I have I know people translators that can be an interpreter, and they practice and they have experience in these companies and they get good at it, but they have an, a lot of training and tools for that, because they have different methodologies like how they take notes and how they train their memory for doing that type of job. So that's why this is the two most common things that the people misunderstanding and make a little bit hard to explain how the difference between them, because the response is always like, but just use translator, or just why, but you don't know English and something like that. But it's different, like I say, it's so different.
Okay, thank you so much, Manu, for your answering, for your time. And it's so interesting your perspective about it. Um, I think I learned a lot about your career and your professions. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, and it's nice to hear that. And I hope this make more interest about my career, because this is like a field in growing right now. So thank you for this interview.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye.